Scott, thank you for joining us. I'm curious about this testing that you will begin on November 16th. Now, this is for select number of flights from Newark to London. And if people on this flight, they're all going to be tested. If somebody tests positive, are they told, look, you can't get on this flight? What happens then?
Yeah, well, thanks, Phil, and good morning. Thanks for having me today. We're excited about this new test. It's going to last for 4 weeks, where we will test everybody on the airplane over the age of 2. And you're right. If somebody tests positive, that's the kind of protocol that we're going to use, is that person then won't be able to get on the airplane. And we're using this as a way to start demonstrating the possibility that we can work out the logistics and start opening borders, because it's really important to be able to start opening up the world economy. This is going to be with us for a while, and testing is a way where we can both be safe and still open up the world economy.
Now, this is an extension, slightly different, but an extension of the program that you've already instituted from San Francisco to Hawaii for passengers flying in that route because of the quarantines that are in effect in Hawaii, that people have to be tested before they go on those flights. And you've actually seen an increase in the number of people who are booking trips to Hawaii because of this testing in place, correct?
We have, and United from the beginning of the pandemic has taken a leadership role, starting with a lot of first and safety initiatives, and then the rigorous study with the Department of Defense on airflow on board airplanes, and then the first airline to start testing. And what we're trying to do is increase confidence for consumers and find ways that there are some things that we can't do until the pandemic is over, until we have a vaccine. But there are a lot of things that we can do safely, and trying to gradually open up the economy and keep pushing the edge of how we can open up and start to take down some of these borders that have been closed.
Scott, I've already heard from some critics who have said, look, these rapid result tests, they're not 100% accurate. In fact, I think you're using the same one that the White House previously was using in terms of people who were going into certain areas of the White House. The critics are going to say, if you can't 100% guarantee that somebody does not have COVID-19, should you be doing these tests?
Well, look, whatever you're doing, whether you're taking your kids to school, driving to work, nothing is 100%. But what we can do is use a layered approach to improve safety. And if you look at what's happening on an airplane, where we're boarding from back to front and cleaning airplanes, the rigorous cleaning protocols, wearing masks on board the airplanes, the risk of a false positive or a false negative on a flight like this, particularly a false negative, is really, really low. And you get into the world of where the risk is really, really low. And if we're going to do both, if we're going to be safe and if we're going to open up the economy, which, by the way, is really important. We've got this barbell economy of some firms that are doing really well, and the service, travel, entertainment, leisure industry that are in a depression right now. And if we're going to open up the economy, we can do it safely. It doesn't require tests that are 100%, but we can do it safely regardless.
I wanted to ask you about a report that I just read in the last few days. It was an Irish study that took a look at a transatlantic flight, a 7-hour transatlantic flight, where 13 passengers wound up infected on that flight. 9 of them were wearing masks. It happened over the summer after a lot of things had already been put in place. The flight was only 17% full, and then they went on to spread it to another 49 people or something, or 46 more people throughout Ireland. I mean, I was a little surprised by that, because we keep hearing that flying is safe, you can't get it on a plane, it's the safest place to be. Do you know about that study, and is that part of the reason that you're doing this?
Well, I did read the study. We were doing this before, but I did see the study. It's really hard to comment on because they didn't give you very much detail. They didn't even say what flight it was, anything about the airplane. And, so it's hard to know if people had coronavirus before they got on a flight. What I would say is the time on an airplane, that what we found from our studies, particularly working with the Department of Defense, is before you get the robust airflow going on an airplane, which typically happens once you start the engines, is the time that it's at risk. There's an old study from the 80s of a tuberculosis incident on an airplane, but the airplane was parked on the tarmac for 2 hours. So if this was a plane that sat on the tarmac without the engines running, that's risky. What we're doing at United, which is unique, and which I'd encourage all airlines around the world to do, is running auxiliary power from the time before we start boarding until the last passenger gets off the airplane. That gives passengers the benefit of the robust airflow on airplanes 100% of the time that they're on the airplane. That can make them uniquely safe. But without seeing the details of that Irish study, It's really hard to comment specifically on it. What I know is we've done rigorous studies in all kinds of scenarios that we feel really confident about the safety on board airplanes, even if the airplane is full.
Hey, Scott, one last question. How worried are you about holiday travel, especially as we see this resurgence in cases around the country? What's your early read in terms of demand right now?
Well, demand had been building. It's flatlined a little bit as you've seen the resurgence in cases. But that's what we've been expecting. We've said this, there's going to be ups and downs. Look, this is not going to be over until we get to a vaccine, which is a widely distributed and available vaccine, which is probably a year or so away. So we're going to see ups and downs. The bigger point is, how do we get to that vaccine and how do we get to a real moving back towards real normalcy? My guess is that we're going to continue to see pretty strong demand over the holidays, but it's so far away from normal that these ups and downs really aren't that relevant compared to where we need to get to a year from now once there's a widely available vaccine.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.